everybody. My name is Tess Harris. I'm the Staff Hearing Officer for today's meeting. This is the Staff Hearing Officer meeting for December 10th. We'll go ahead and get started. We have a few items on calendar today, but I'll go ahead and get started with item 1, which is preliminary matters. So first, any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or the addition of X agenda items. We don't have any requests at this time, so we'll move on into agenda item 1B, the announcements and appeals. So I have a couple announcements today. We have a couple different coastal development permits. I will go ahead and make the announcement for the decision for both items at this time. So the first item is the announcement of the Staff Hearing Officer decision on a coastal development permit for an accessory dwelling unit at 1126 Las Olas Avenue. That's case number PLN 2025-00190. It's in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. I'm going to read the brief project description and then I'll make the decision. Or announce the decision. The project consists of a proposal to construct a new 904 square foot single story detached ADU on a 9,094 square foot lot. The subject parcel is developed with a 1,343 square foot single story single unit residence, a detached workshop, and a 2-car carport, which is proposed to remain. And so before me today as a staff hearing officer, we have the coastal development permit to allow the development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone and declare that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to the section that allows for new construction or conversion of small structures. And so that item, my decision for that is going to be to approve the project. And my decision or the announcement for that is not appealable, given that it's a coastal development permit for an accessory dwelling unit. The second one that we have, and I'll just note for both of these, I have visited the sites and am familiar with the area. So these are both accessory dwelling units in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, sort of near the Mesa area neighborhood in the area in the city, and are adding additional dwelling units on their property. So the second item is a decision for a coastal development permit to allow an accessory dwelling unit at 122 San Clemente. That's case number PLN 2023-00461 in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. This is a 6,096 square foot lot. It's located in the coastal zone non-appealable jurisdiction and is currently developed with a 1,379 square foot single unit residence and a detached 375 square foot 2-car garage. The proposal includes a 413 square foot addition and remodel to the residence, demolishing a 25 square foot portion of floor area within the south and west setbacks, and converting the garage to an accessory dwelling unit. The proposed total of 2,097 square feet of development on a 6,096 square foot lot is 77% of the Florida lot net area ratio, or Florida lot area ratio, excuse me. And so the applications in front of me today are the coastal development permit to allow for the accessory dwelling unit and determining that the project is exempt, again, pursuant to section 15303 in CEQA. Which is the section that would allow for new construction or the conversion of small structures. This item, before I make a decision here, we did receive correspondence. So if I could have, let me just take a look. If I could have the case planner just come up really quick and provide, since this came in fairly recently, just provide a brief summary of the comments, if you don't mind, Ms. Ernest.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Ms. Harris. My name is Carly Ernest. I'm the case planner for the ADU at 122 San Clemente, and there was a public comment received from the immediate neighbor, I believe at 118 San Clemente, and it was just really a clarification of the project, but I do want to note the only discretionary action is the CDP for the ADU itself. The other improvements to the single-family residence qualified for a coastal exemption and were processed under that. But if Ms. Gu could, yeah, thank you. So the public comment was just really clarifying the areas of additions and demolition to the single-family residence. So I can pull up the proposed site plan here just to review those. So the lighter gray color is the existing residence, and then the darker gray colors are the areas of additions. And this area here is really just an infill of an existing patio area. And then this area of addition in the front is kind of an infill of the entry courtyard area. There are a few areas of demolition. It's kind of hard to see, but it's in this dashed print. So it's a small portion here and here. That's to bring this portion of the residence into compliance with the interior setback. And then there's a small portion of demolition up here and here to create a new covered entry porch and then also facilitate that new addition at the front. They'd also asked about timeline for construction and noise limitations, and I had provided some information on that. And yeah, that's, I believe, covers it.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Ernest. So now I will go ahead and make my decision. I do appreciate the public comment that came in from Mr. Catanese. So thank you for that. I did review this prior to the meeting today. I will go ahead and make my decision for the project, which is approval of the project for 122 San Clemente, PLN 2023-00461, subject to the findings in the staff report. Thank you very much, Ms. Ernest. So now we're going to go ahead and go into general public comment, which is item 1C on the agenda. So if you are a member of the public here today and you'd like to speak on an item that is not currently on the staff hearing officer agenda today, you're welcome to fill out a slip or come up to the podium and make a comment. Okay. Not seeing any movement towards the podium. Ms. Gu, do you have anybody online that would like to make general public comment?
Upon checking Zoom, I do not see any raised hands for this particular item. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so next we will move on. So we're going to move on to item 2 on the agenda, which are the projects. We have 3 projects before us today. So the first project is for 110 to 150 South Lacumba Road. It's for a front setback modification. So we'll start there. I'm going to go ahead and read the project description into the record, and then we'll start out with staff that'll give a presentation, and then I'll turn it over to the architect or applicant if they'd like to share any additional information as well. Okay, so item 1B1. Excuse me, sorry, this is the old, let's see. All right, so item 2A, the proposed project consists of a change to a previously approved self-automated drive-through car wash. The previously approved project required a performance standard permit, which was approved by the staff hearing officer on June 26, 2024. The revised project consists of increasing the car wash structure by 130 square feet to 1,085 square feet, increasing the queuing lane from 116 feet to 136 feet, and shifting the car wash structure approximately 6 feet 8 inches from the western property line, encroaching into the front setback. The approved project site included merging 2 properties, 110 South Lacumba Road, which is developed with a 2,194 square foot, 1-story non-residential building, previously used as a pet hospital, and 150 South Lacumba Road, developed with a gas station, a mini market, and a hydrogen fueling station. The subject properties are surrounded by 3 public streets: South La Cumbre Road, South La Cumbre Lane, and La Cumbre Plaza Lane. The approved site work included the demolition of the existing 2,194 square foot non-residential pet hospital building and construction of a 922 square foot automatic self-serve drive-through car wash and 2 vacuum spaces. The car wash would be accessed from within the property's internal circulation with a 116 linear foot dedicated approach lane for queuing cars. The driveway aprons on La Cumbre Plaza Lane, currently serving the front entrance of the existing pet hospital, would be removed and replaced with a 150 square foot planter, 4-foot sidewalk, and curb per city standards. The driveway apron on South La Cumbre Lane nearest the car wash would be improved with a 4-foot wide continuous walk for accessibility, and the sidewalk along South La Cumbre Road would be widened to meet city standards. The existing 1,685 square foot mini market, 6 gasoline fueling pump stations, and hydrogen fueling station would remain unchanged. 6 vehicle parking spaces and 2 bicycle parking spaces would be provided for the entire service station. The discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of today's hearing at the staff hearing officer level are a front setback modification that allows for the car wash structure to be shifted to the westerly property line on South La Cumbre Lane, which will encroach 3 feet 4 inches into the required 10-foot front setback along South La Cumbre Lane, and determination that the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15301 of CEQA. And so now I will turn it over to Ms. Broadison to provide staff comment.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. And Ms. Gu, can you put the PowerPoint up? Thank you. Yes, thank you for that project description. I'm Kelly Broadison with Community Development. That was a long project description. However, all that project, that was all approved previously in, I think, 2024. So the staff hearing officer previously approved a performance standard permit to operate a mini mart and a car wash on the lot, which also included the merging of the 2 lots. So this slide here shows the vicinity map, and you can see the project is kind of wedged in the corner there between La Cumbre and State Street as you're driving north on La Cumbre Road. And then this site, this is performance standard, the elements of the performance standard permit, as you stated: merging the lots, constructing a drive-through car wash, 2 vacuum spaces, the gas station, mini mart, and hydrogen fueling station are to remain. This is the area, this is a gas station here with the mini mart in the background. And in the background, you can see this is the existing veterinarian's building, which is proposed to be demolished, and that'll be the location of the new self-serve car wash. This project does have a lot of history, as it's described in the staff report. I've been working on it for so many years now. Got to get that permit issued. A conditional use permit was approved in 1985 to convert the automobile service bays to a mini market. And then in 2014, the Planning Commission approved an amendment to the CUP to permit the elimination of the service bays and the expansion of the mini market. And then in 2026, they approved, like I said, 2024, they approved a performance standard permit for the car wash. So then on May 21st, the applicant came in because they realized that since their original submittal, the type of equipment required to run the car wash had changed, and that required a change in the footprint of the building, and it required shifting the building further to the, to the west. So here is the existing building. This is the existing mini mart here. These are where the gas station, the pumps are, with the canopy above. And here is the car wash structure. The queuing lane previously, you would enter in through here and you'd curve around and go through the car wash and then come out. So what happened was during their, I guess, when they started getting the engineering done and looking at the type of equipment they needed, they realized, as I said, they had to push the building further to the west, and that would require in lengthening the queuing lane. So now, instead of going in on the where you previously would go in on the top, you now would go through. You'd come out this way. It's opposite now. You'd go in on the top of the lot. You could see the different footprint of the building, and then you queue. It's a longer queuing lane now, which was supported by Public Works Transportation. And it requires the new building to encroach, let's see, I think it was 3 feet, 4 inches into the setback. So there's a 10-foot setback, and that's on this property. So that just shows, the red here shows the amount of encroachment that's being requested. Let's see, the project is surrounded by 3 public streets, so it has 10 feet setbacks, whereas most commercial properties don't have any setbacks. And there is an existing building on the site which is planned for demolition, the veterinarian's building. This existing building is constructed right up onto the property line, and so although this project, this new structure location will encroach, it still provides landscaping more relief from the public right-of-way than the existing structure on site. It'll only encroach, like I said, 3 foot 4 inches, and the new location will allow for a larger turning radius into the wash bay and provide larger queuing lane. Transportation planning, in consultation with the city traffic engineer, is supportive of the revision because the proposed location allows for appropriate maneuvering and it will prevent queuing in the public right-of-way. So for these reasons, staff is supportive of the front setback modification. Because it would be consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, could be necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot, and there will be no negative impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. Also, staff finds that this project substantially conforms to the previously approved performance standard permit because all of the criteria required for PSPs in this zone are still going to be met. And the project was found exempt under 15061, which is a common sense exemption, because it can be with certainty that there is no possibility that the activity in question may have a significant effect on the environment. Also, the design review, the ABR reviewed the project, and we're very supportive of the use of this lot, having some development and activity here, and they appreciated the architecture and the amount of landscaping. So with that, staff recommends that you approve the project and make the findings in the staff report. We have the architect here, Kent Mixon, to provide any comments, and also the landscape architect to make any comments also, if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Ms. Bradison. If the architect or landscape architect would like to add anything, you're more than welcome to at this time.
Use this one or that one? Thank you. Good morning. And there's not a whole lot to add. Ms. Broderson did a pretty thorough job there and pretty much presented the project for me. So I don't really have anything to add. There was just some kind of clarification, and I think there was just maybe some mathematical errors. The square footages are slightly different. It ends up being, from what was previously approved, I think it's like 243 square foot increase. The landscape actually increases 170 square feet. I don't know if that was even noted, but as you can see, that existing site is pretty much entirely paved. So our intention was to, make this, clean up this corner and really make a great addition, because it's a very heavily trafficked area and very visible. As ABR noted, I think they called this a car wash in the garden or something to that effect. So anyway, I don't know if you have anything to add, Robert.
Yeah, well, that was one of the comments. I'm Robert Andrew Fowler, landscape architect. That was one of the comments that ABR framed it as, a car wash in a garden. And the other aspect, and we worked with the civil engineer very carefully on, was that I think we really cleaned up the drainage situation there. I don't know if you're familiar with that location, but it has flooded in the past. And so the landscape and the civils went to great lengths to kind of gather that water in and, accommodate through the stormwater management components and then bring it so it wasn't, on site the way it historically had been. So that's about it.
That's great, thank you. So I will now ask, I've got a couple questions, and then we're going to open it up for public comment, and then I'll make the decision. Question either for the applicant or for staff on the front setback encroachment. You had mentioned that because of the car wash tunnel, the change in mechanics or in the configuration that was a larger building and then required this encroachment. Did you look at shifting the building? Was that feasible or not feasible to get out of the setback? Did that create issues with transportation, or is it possible to shift it from what you're seeing here a little bit south, or
East.
Thank you.
I can speak to that. Yeah, we did various reconfigurations of trying to get this to work. The hardest part is the whole driveway radius and trying to, so that people can continuously drive through there and without having to queue and do a 3-point turn type of thing, which would be a nightmare. So no, with the increased tunnel, we couldn't keep the building where it was in the previous design. And this was pretty much the minimum that we could allow for that radius in the cars to still make it into the tunnel.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And then this one might be for you, Robert, but could you clarify if there's any landscaping on the west side? So the side encroaching into the setback on South LaCumber Lane?
Yeah, there's the landscape
Is there-
plan
Could I see the
here, so we
landscape
can
plan?
take a look at it.
All the green hatch is landscaping. So
Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is will the building be shielded to a degree from South LaCumber Lane so that it's, even though it is encroaching into the setback, it does not necessarily appear to be encroaching into the setback?
Yes, I think if you see the landscape plan, you'll see it's well landscaped.
Can you switch to the site plan, please, that I have up on the screen? Thank you. Yeah, the PowerPoint, that's the applicant's PowerPoint. It's right
Right.
there.
Is it in the Teams folder?
Just want the applicant's plans to come up.
Yeah.
We're in there.
So it's on the computer, but not in the Teams folder.
Should we take it to this?
Kind of towards
Should be
the
at
end, isn't
very
it?
end, probably.
There you go. Okay. I thought the picture's worth 1,000 words kind of thing, so.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
It's well landscaped on that side, as you can see, with some taller plants that will kind of soften that. And there's some of the queen palms that you find on the site. We're trying to reutilize those where you see queen palms, or at the very least, we'll bring in significant queen palms, so that the landscape kind of blends with what's there. And that was part of the design of trying to extend and make this new project feel like it kind of was in keeping with the rest of the project. And at the same time, some of the landscape picks up some of the flavor of the AT&T building across the street, so it was meant to kind of work with the whole corner.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's helpful, certainly helpful to see the landscaping, and sort of for the public to recognize there will be some sort of shielding of the car wash building despite the close location. So I'm going to now open it up for public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to speak on item 2A, 110 to 150 South LaCumber Road, please come on up to the podium at this time. Okay, I'm not seeing any movement. Anybody online, Ms. Gu?
Upon checking Zoom, I do not see any raised hands for this particular item. Thank you.
Okay, great. So a couple sort of comments here. I've been at the site many times. I actually used to take my dog to La Cumbre Animal Hospital when it was there, so I'm very, very familiar of the site. I think it'll be, I've wondered over the years since they've moved what this building would be, because it is such a constrained lot and really challenging, given the three different roads, that completely pretty much encircle it. So I think it makes a lot of sense that it was merged and is now being utilized as a car wash building, and it's just going to have a more cohesive feel rather than two separate businesses or two separate uses in such a small area. So certainly think that it makes sense. I think this second design, the design that Ms. Brodesson, you showed me earlier, it did show a reduced drive lane, and that actually concerned me more, just given, that we often do see a lot of queuing for a lot of different things in the city, but, for car washes specifically. So I think this longer drive lane that would allow for just for more cars to be queuing in the space makes a lot of sense. I would be very concerned to have cars that are spilling out onto either street. South La Cumbre Lane is certainly a smaller one, but because of the development immediately adjacent, there's a lot of traffic going in and out. So would be concerned either way if there's traffic going into the roadway. So I'm glad that transportation took a close look at this to make sure that that it met their requirements and that wouldn't be happening. And this seems like it, if there was an extended drive lane, that it could easily sort of go into the gas station area and sort of be solved in that way. It's never great to put a building into a setback. And so that was sort of where my question was coming from. I certainly would much rather not have to have the building pushed up as close to the setback as it is, with the 3 to 4 foot encroachment into the 10-foot setback. That being said, it's still leaving about 7 feet, and it's a really constrained lot. And I think I think there's been sufficient work to sort of solve for some of the issues that come from reducing the setback. So in terms of landscaping, in terms of looking at just different configurations on this lot and what that looks like. So I am ready to, with the changes that the applicant mentioned, with the making sure that the approved plans show the correct numbers, so 243 square feet of increase from what was approved for the building, and then landscape increases of 170 square feet. So just making sure that we catch that before the item in the resolution and before the item it goes into building, that those items are changed. But with those changes, I am ready to make to go with the staff recommendation and approve the project. And give me one moment, I will pull up the appeal item here. My decision is subject to appeal within 10 calendar days, and any member of the Planning Commission can also suspend my decision within a 10 calendar day period. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I think certainly the landscape will soften this site overall, and I think is a great addition in this area. So thank you for coming today, and I hope that this can be a smooth process moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Gu, can you please move the item over? Thank you. Just so members of the public can see the appeal process. So again, if you'd like to file an appeal, you can come into the office. You can write via email or send it in via mail. Must be submitted within 10 calendar days. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Brodesson. So now we are going to move on to item 2B. And give me one moment. I'm just going to pull it up on my computer. Okay. Good morning. Okay, so we'll go into item 2B for 410 Oria Del Mar. I'm going to go ahead and read the project description into the record, and then I will turn it over to Ms. Ernest for a staff presentation. So this item is, the 5,000 square foot site is currently developed with a 1,418 square foot duplex and a 424 square foot two-car detached garage. The project proposes to convert the garage to one hotel unit. The project also includes exterior improvements to the duplex, including replacement of windows and upgraded siding, reconstruction of an as-built trellis, and permitting the as-built exterior mechanical equipment. 3 uncovered vehicle parking spaces and 1 bike parking space are proposed. Landscape and hardscape changes are proposed to accommodate the 3 required parking spaces. The proposal would abate enforcement case ENF 2022-00090, which identified the following violations: conversion of a garage to a dwelling unit, construction of a trellis, and installation of mechanical equipment, including water heaters, air conditioning units, and electrical panels, and a jacuzzi tub without permits. The discretionary applications today under my review at the staff hearing officer level are the open yard modification that allows for the reduction of open yard, a coastal development permit to allow the development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, and then determine that the project is categorically exempt pursuant to 15303 in CEQA, which is the new construction or conversion of small structures. And so now I will turn it over to Ms. Ernest for a staff presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Harris. I'm Carly Ernest, the case planner for the project, and will be presenting the request for the open yard modification and the coastal development permit. And the applicant is here today as well and can speak following my presentation. But just to start with the project location, it is located at 410 Oria Del Mar Drive in the East Beach neighborhood and in the city's coastal zone, the non-appealable jurisdiction. And then just to get a context for the zoning and adjacent zoning, here is the map showing the zoning layer. So it's located in the HRC1 zone, which is hotel and related commerce uses, which is intended for hotels and related commerce uses. And then adjacent zones is quite a mix. So you have R4, multi-unit residential, PR, parks and recreation, C2 commercial, and even some manufacturing over there. So the area is quite a mix of residential, commercial, hotel, parks and open space uses. And then just to show an aerial view of the area as well and the existing development on site. It is or was developed in 1938 with an existing duplex. Zoom in a little more. An existing duplex and a 2-car detached garage. And going to the project plans to look at some site photos here. This is a view of the duplex from the street, the front unit A, view of the duplex from the back, the rear unit B, and then this is the rear yard area. There has been unpermitted work done on the property, including converting the previously detached garage to a habitable space. That is this structure. That was one of the violations identified in the enforcement case. Other unpermitted work included the construction of this trellis, jacuzzi tub, and then some exterior mechanical equipment along this side of the duplex. And all of those violations will be addressed as part of this application. For further background, I'll pull up the site plan here. So here's the existing and proposed site plan. So from plan view, this is the existing duplex and 2-car garage. The existing site plan reflects the last permitted configuration. And then proposed here is the duplex to remain, and then that altered garage structure converted to the hotel room and the parking spaces for the duplex as well as the hotel room. And just for some background, the HRC1 zone does not allow for residential uses. The duplex was originally permitted in 1938 when the property was zoned C1, which was a commercial zone that allowed for residential uses. But because of the zone change, it's now considered a legal nonconforming use. And under Title 28, the city's coastal zoning ordinance, there's pretty strict limitations on additions, expansions, or improvements to nonconforming development. So with that in mind, the applicant and owner submitted a pre-application with the city to explore ways to abate the violations identified. And the owner had desired to convert the altered garage or abate that violation by converting it to an accessory dwelling unit. But this zone is one of the few zones that does not allow for residential uses. And the existing duplex is non-conforming and the residential use cannot be expanded. So the remaining options were to either revert the altered garage back to its original permitted configuration or to an allowed use in the HRC1 zone, such as a hotel use. So that's what this project is proposing to do, is abate the violations by converting the altered garage to a hotel unit and permitting the other as-built work, including the trellis and mechanical equipment. And as part of that conversion, they needed to meet the required parking. And as a result of the parking design, which there's the 2 uncovered stalls here provided for the duplex, and then the 1 accessible stall here provided for the hotel unit, because hotels are considered a non-residential use, that parking space has to comply with the accessibility standards of the California Building Code. So that is the reason for the reduction of open yard and the request for the open yard modification under your purview today. So going to further into this modification request and reviewing the existing and proposed open yard. So residential developments in this zone, the HRC1 zone, have to comply with the R3 and R4 zone standards for outdoor living space. And there are 2 ways to calculate that under Title 28, the city's coastal zoning ordinance. There's Method A for private outdoor living space and Method B for common outdoor living space. And the site is non-conforming under either method. So to more clearly depict the total reduction, we are using Method B, the common outdoor living space method, which requires that 15% of the net lot area, which would be 750 square feet, be provided as common outdoor living space. So on the left here, we have the existing open yard diagram, and the yellow shows those areas that can count towards the existing open yard. And it is meeting the minimum area at 822 square feet, but it's just short of the minimum dimensions, not meeting the 20 by 20 feet. So it is considered non-conforming. And the reduction is a total reduction of 262 square feet because of the parking design to accommodate the hotel unit. So on the right here is the proposed open yard diagram showing the proposed open yard in orange. So it's no longer meeting the minimum dimensions or area, and the reduction of non-conforming yard requires approval of the zoning modification. Staff is supportive of that modification because we found it to meet the required findings, specifically in that it's necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. The HRC1 zone is intended for hotel uses, and the open yard modification is a result of the parking design to accommodate the hotel unit. The site is also constrained in that the zone change rendered it non-conforming, the residential use non-conforming, so they're also limited in the size of the lot. It's 5,000 square feet, so pretty small on that side as well. And lastly, with regards to the intent of open yard to provide usable outdoor space, we found that the project's location in the East Beach neighborhood and just adjacency to many parks and open space in East Beach met that intent of open yard, that there's nearby recreational opportunities and a plethora of outdoor spaces for the residential portion to take advantage of. And then just regards to the coastal development permit, that is also under the staff hearing officer's purview today for the conversion to the hotel unit in the property now being considered mixed use with the residential and hotel use. And staff found it to meet or is supportive of the coastal development permit because we found it to meet the required findings and that it's consistent with the Coastal Act and local coastal plan policies as outlined in the staff report. And just to touch on design review, it did go to ABR on October 20th. They had some minor comments on the exterior materials of the duplex and making those consistent with the hotel unit. But overall, they were supportive of the open yard modification due to the site constraints. And if the project is approved today, it would return to ABR with the applicant addressing those comments next week. And that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it over to the applicant and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Ernest.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Bonderson. Would you like to add anything to the presentation?
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Harris. I'm Roxana Bonderson. I'm the applicant for this project. And after a presentation like that, there's not much to say. You don't even have to read the staff report. It was very thorough presentation. I wanted to just use my time to share a quick story with you. Spoiler alert, it has a happy ending. But I just wanted to share that this project has been a very complex journey for everyone involved, not just the applicant team and the homeowner, but staff has been very involved, very participant in trying to help guide this project to a solution that would make sense for the site. And I, excuse me, and I think all of us have learned a lot about the HRC zone along the way. It's been a huge learning curve, and we're just kind of collecting friends along the way and saying, hey, come and learn about the HRC zone. Let's practice together. But what you see here is a compilation of several different departments, many, many planners from each, putting their creativity together to come up with a way to move this project forward. And honestly, it is so different than where we started. I'm so pleased that we could find a path forward, especially because of the age of this site, 1938. When this project was built, it was a very different time, a different zone. It's changed zones twice, 3 times actually now, and doesn't allow for many options. I mean, there's not, as Ms. Ernest said, there's no allotment for any future increase of residential here. So our options were a bit limited because the 1938 garage didn't actually fit current modern vehicles. And so this has been a wonderful solution to a very complicated project. I just want to end by also saying that Ms. Ernest has been very, very thorough with her staff report. I've read a number of them in my career, and I've never, maybe I'm biased because I know the project so well, but she didn't miss anything, so I don't have anything to add with regard to the actual reason we're here today. If you have any questions, though, obviously we're here to respond and support and guide you, so please let me know.
Great, thank you, Ms. Bonderson. I'm going to open it up to the members of the public. If there's any member of the public that in the room that would like to speak on this item, if you could come forward at this time. Okay. Are there any members of the public online, Ms. Gu, that would like to speak on item 2B?
Upon checking Zoom, I do not see any raised hands for public comment on this item. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've got mostly comments, but if a question pops up, then it'll pop up. But so I'll start out by saying, without, knowing sort of the ins and outs of what's been going on behind the scenes at the staff level, to be honest, this is a project that I really did not know coming into this what I was going to do. This is a really challenging site. I have to say the HRC 1 zone is also really challenging in this location, and quite frankly, I don't think it should exist in this location. And so that's more a message to the Coastal Commission and to staff if at a future time, when looking at Title 28, in this particular area, you know, I've visited this site. I spent a lot of time earlier this week just kind of walking around the general area, and then I'm always down by East Beach area, so I'm very familiar with the location. But, you know, it's interesting walking along this particular street because this site is, to me, clearly looks like it is used for residential purposes for somebody's home or multiple people's homes. When you walk down the street, there are a number of keypads on buildings that typically indicate that they're for short-term rental use or, you know, not for somebody's everyday home. I didn't see that on this site. I could have missed it, but I didn't see it. There also were a few other buildings that I didn't see that for. So clearly there are members of the public that are living on this street and certainly on the streets immediately adjacent that call this their neighborhood and their home, long-term home. And, you know, that would be the city's preference, would be to have housing rather than additional hotel space. So that is more where I struggle with this. And I recognize it's the CDP in front of me and then the open yard modification, but trying to understand why we are sort of, you know, well, first, you know, taking a step back, not great that the applicant did work without permits, right? That is never something we want to see. We always want to have somebody come in and talk to us first. So I do want to say, I wish that didn't happen, you know, to the property owner. Please don't do that again. You know, come in to get, it's a lot easier to come into the process than have to go through enforcement case after enforcement case. I know this has been in for a few years now because of that. So, you know, that is an issue. But separately, it is better to have a unit than a garage on this site, particularly in the location, being close to the beach, being close to multiple bus stops, being just having that adjacency there. So I do think there is a benefit to that. With that question, I wanted to just ask a question, Ms. Ernest, on the parking. So are the stalls required because this is a hotel room, and are any stalls required for the existing non-conforming duplex that I assume is an AB 2097 and wouldn't otherwise need a parking space? Could you clarify that?
Sure, thank you, Ms. Harris. The project site is not located in AB 2097, so they are
Okay.
required to comply with the parking requirements of the Title 28 Coastal Zoning Ordinance. Current standards for duplexes would require 4 spaces. This property is non-conforming to parking because it was only developed with the 2 spaces. So the parking for the duplex is met with stall 1 and stall 2 here.
Okay.
And the required parking for the hotel room is 1 space, 1 vehicle space, as well as 1 bicycle parking space, which is there. And because it's associated with the non-residential use, that's why it's the accessible space.
May I add something?
Yes.
Just literally a word I'm going to add. The requirement, the CBC requirement for the ADA stall is that it be a van accessible stall, which is why it's longer and wider. And of course, it has the buffer, which is all required for the van.
Okay, great.
Just an extra detail.
Other piece just to that, I'm noticing that the existing gate and then the driveway appears to be well under 9 feet. It looks like it might be 7 feet. Can you just clarify, if you know that off the top of your head, what that is, and just more confirmation that transportation has looked at this and ensured that a van or any type of vehicle that would need to park could actually make it through that driveway? And what I'm asking this because I don't want the applicant to get caught up in the building permit phase where then, you know, there could be issues with the driveway width.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Harris. The parking design has been looked at and approved by transportation, and here's the parking diagram showing the turnaround. It is a tight driveway, but that vehicle would fit down there, and then they also would be able to meet the requirement for the on-site turnaround because non-residential uses, transportation, or city council direction is that they cannot back out onto the street. So that was another constraint we had here in getting the on-site turnaround to work. So here you can see that the van stall would even be able to make the on-site turnaround work for not backing out onto the street.
Okay, great. And then, it appeared to me that it was being used as sort of somebody's primary residence. Ms. Bonnerson, can you sort of maybe provide a little bit of color into what the three different units on this property are being used for or intended to be used for long-term?
Yes, of course. So Unit B is the homeowner's primary residence. They initially acquired this home with, I would say, all of the violations with the exception of the conversion of the garage. No permits have, I shouldn't say that. The archives demonstrate permits, which we used to begin this project, which was 1938, and literally nothing else has happened. So to upgrade the property over these many, well, goodness, it's almost a century, work has been done naturally, putting in new water meters and so on. So all of those are being brought up to code and validated for this project as well. With regard to Unit A, this family is currently renting it out. They also do have a short-term rental business license legally prior to the moratorium of business licenses. So when they do use it for short-term rentals, it's done legally, but they do rent it out. So there's home ownership and regular use of both units. And as we discussed earlier, unknowingly and unfortunately, they converted the garage at a time where the garage was dilapidated. It was literally falling down. It was supposed to be a project that was to rehabilitate the building, but as they started getting into it, it was really bad, so it became a project, which is where we are today, unfortunately. That being said, the purpose was to have an expansion, like a rec room or something for Unit B. Then when it became a violation case and they realized they weren't supposed to have a rec room or such, they tried to do the ADU to be able to provide more housing. That was very important to them in their community. But as you know, it cannot be. And so instead of converting it back to a garage, they wanted to move forward with hotel use, which is what makes this whole project so complicated with the mixed use. I hope that answers your question. Do you have any follow-up with that?
It does. Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Bonderson. Yeah, I think the only, where I struggle and for members of the public, just recognizing that there is as a hotel room, the applicant could use it for short-term rental use, and that is allowed in this zone, so that is acceptable. If they choose not to use it not to rent it out, well, maybe Ms. Ernest, could you perhaps kind of walk through if they chose not to ever put it on Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, not to ever rent it out, but just sort of have it? Is there anything that from an enforcement standpoint that would happen?
So to hopefully answer that, there has been a condition of approval added to the project that it is not, basically to prevent it from turning into an ADU or be used as residential uses. There is a condition of approval that restricts the amenities that are inside of it. And the zoning ordinance kind of lists once you have a certain amount of amenities, that's what would constitute a residential unit. So that condition was designed to limit the amount of amenities that would turn it into a residential unit. So that would be limit on countertop lengths, sink no greater than 12 by 12 inches, which they don't have in the kitchen. They couldn't have a full-size refrigerator. So there is a condition to limit it from becoming a use it's not intended to be, but we cannot require that they put it on the market or rent it out a certain amount of days.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Ernest. That's helpful. That's sort of, that is very helpful. I appreciate that. Could one of you maybe just talk about, with that condition specifically, maybe this is more for you, Ms. Bunderson, what exists today? Is there anything that exists in this unit today that could not exist because of this condition? And is the applicant aware of the condition, and are they comfortable with it?
Thank you for your question. Yes, one of the modifications that we will need to make during the building phase, the construction phase, I should say, to bring the existing development back to code, excuse me, would be a slight modification of what we're calling the cooking facilities. There is no stove. There has never been a stove, but there is a full-size sink that is too big to meet the 12 by 12 that Ms. Ernest mentioned. There's also a dishwasher which will be removed. We've already accommodated the design to reflect that. And when the project was photographed for the NOV, excuse me again, sorry, there was a full refrigerator which has already been removed, and the design will accommodate an under counter size refrigerator, although they have requested thus far not to install a 12 by 12 sink. It's just going to become cabinetry because it's built in and customized to the size, and therefore it's only going to act like built-in furniture.
Great, thank you. This is going to be a question for you, Ms. Ernest. So I'm looking at condition of approval number 5, which is the hotel unit restrictions condition. If I was to change the condition to limit it to the first sentence only, meaning it would state the hotel unit shall remain at all times consistent with the city's ordinance requirements. The items behind, which are I think the items that you were sort of referencing, are still in the city's ordinance requirements, correct? So technically, they still would need to abide by that?
Ms. Harris, the way the definition of a residential unit is written, it leaves it up to the community development director to determine when a certain amount of these amenities are there, if it would constitute a residential unit. So, and there's not a clear definition. It kind of leaves it open to determination by the community development director when they have one or more of those items. I think how we've looked at it is if they have more than 3 of those items, we would start looking at it as a residential unit instead of a hotel unit. Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you, Ms. Ernest. I think I would like to strike the second sentence, and I recognize that might be challenging from a staff standpoint to understand what that means, but the reason I'm doing it is because long-term, I think the hope would be that the Coastal Commission would take a different approach to this site. That doesn't mean that the applicant can't, or that doesn't mean that the applicant can make it a residential unit today. They cannot. They're sort of stuck with it needing to be a hotel unit and needing to use it as a short-term rental portion. But I would like to try to avoid any conditions that could limit them if there were changes in the future. And so maybe, I know this is not typical, Ms. Ernest, but if you have any thoughts on whether removing that second sentence, or perhaps we could change it to say to prevent, or take out that first portion of the second sentence and just say the hotel unit may not provide more than 3 of the following items, if that's, or may not provide, if there are certain ones in particular. I guess what I'm trying to get at is there are a couple of these items that if it's a short-term rental unit, it just, somebody could theoretically live in there for 30 days, right? And so I don't know that it's really, if someone is living in there for 30 days, there are some things on this list that I feel like could actually be in a 30-day rental.
Then I think it would be appropriate to say limit to
3
to
or
3.
a certain number?
to
Okay.
3. And then I do want to look up that code section, just because there's not the full list of them in here that, of the amenities that would be considered or count towards it being a residential unit. So maybe I could just fill that in with Ms. Gu after and
Sure.
just say the amenities that can
Allowed.
constitute, limit to 3 of the amenities per the exact Title 28 definition, not the only ones that are listed here.
Yes, that sounds great. So I think what I'd like it to say is the hotel unit shall remain at all times consistent with the city's ordinance requirements, period. Delete to prevent separate residential occupancy, and just state the hotel unit may not provide, more than 3 of the following, and then
Okay.
you can work with Ms. Gu on making that edit.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yes, that
Thank you
works.
very
Mhm.
much, Ms. Ernest. I'm just going to go through, just to make sure. I think that was the only change I wanted to make. I wanted to just confirm, Ms. Bonderson, that the applicant's aware of all of the conditions of approval and is comfortable with the conditions of approval as written.
Yes, thank you. I have discussed the staff report thoroughly with the applicant. He is completely clear on what it entails. We have also, just to follow up on the previous comment, we've worked extensively with staff on the hotel unit restriction and understanding the meaning of that, and have modified the design accordingly to meet that. So the homeowner's very, very clear on this and will be following the requirements.
Great, thank you, Ms. Bonderson. So, with that, this is a really challenging project. It's really challenging because of the zone, and it is a zone that, especially in our community, we're looking to provide more housing and not less, and this is a zone that actually restricts residential units, and so that is problematic. And so I just want to put that sort of on the record at the staff hearing officer meeting, that is a real concern, and hopefully something that can be addressed in the future. But at the same time, the property owner should be able to use their property, and given the limitations that exist in the current zone on this property, and recognizing that the zone has changed over the years on this site, and this property has existed since the late 30s. As a few others in the area have too, and that's where you see there are some larger short-term rental facilities or buildings in this area, and there are some smaller single-family homes or just single-family homes in the general vicinity as well. And so that mix is certainly there, and isn't necessarily reflected in the zone that the site has. I also just really want to compliment staff. So Ms. Ernest, this is a really challenging project, and the staff report was very thorough. I read it multiple times, and your presentation was really helpful. And I know this is, I can only imagine how much work this required from the internal staff, just sort of making sure everybody was on the same page, and also getting, with a project that has an enforcement action against it, that poses additional challenges, and is not something we want to ever see. So just thank you for the work that you've provided on this project. With that, I'm going to go ahead and approve the project as proposed with the change to condition number 5. And I will go ahead and make the findings in the staff report. Let's see. So the finding for environmental review, I do believe the project qualifies for an exemption under 15303 for new construction or the conversion of small structures. Because of the exterior improvements, it complies with the conditions of the exemption. And so that is satisfied. The open yard modification, I recognize we didn't talk a whole lot about the modification, but I don't see another way for this site to I don't see another way for this to work unless the unit was converted back to a garage and changed. And I don't think we want that either. I think, unfortunately, we're stuck in a situation where, yes, they did something that wasn't wasn't done with permits, but also it does provide an additional unit of some type for somebody to live there on a short-term basis as a short-term rental. So, recognizing that this site that this project provides an improvement, it facilitates an additional hotel unit, which is an allowed use in the HRC1 zone, that it's extremely constrained due to the non-conforming use on the site because of the zone change that happened, and that any additions or changes as to residential use on the site is not allowed. And so even though it reduces the on-site open yard, it's in a really rich area for open space and pretty much a block from the ocean and very close to Dwight Murphy and the zoo and many other park facilities. So I feel comfortable in reducing the open yard modification for this project. And then making the coastal development permit findings that the project is consistent with the policies of the California Coastal Act related to public access, visitor serving and recreational facilities, and water quality. And that the project is applicable with all policies of the city's local coastal plan, all implementing guidelines, and all applicable provisions of the code related to land use, public access, visitor serving and recreational facilities, and water quality, scenic resources and visual quality, cultural resources, and coastal hazards and safety, as Ms. Ernest described in her staff report. So my decision is appealable. Give me one second. Ms. Gu, can you please move it to the slide? Thank you. So the decision that I've made today to approve the project can be appealed within 10 calendar days in writing, either by mail, email, or it can be filed in person. An appeal, a member of the Planning Commission may also suspend my decision within the 10 calendar days as well. I wish the applicant best of luck, and I hope this project can continue to move forward through the building process. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll take just a minute and then we'll move on to the next item, which is item 2C. So if I have the staff or applicant that would like to come up to the table, you are more than welcome to do so. Hi. All right, so we'll go ahead and start item 2C for 533 East Mitchell-Torrena Street. I'm going to go ahead and read the item into the record, and then I'll pass it over to Ms. Bradison for a brief staff presentation. So this item is a request for a time extension for a tentative subdivision map approved by the Planning Commission on December 15th, 2022. The applicant is requesting an extension until December 15th, 2032, per California Government Code Section 66452.6. The approved project consists of a new condominium development using the average unit size density incentive program. The project includes the construction of a 45-foot tall, 6-unit condominium building in the location of existing surface-level parking lot adjacent to an existing 48-foot tall mixed-use condominium building containing 2 residential units and 10,100 square feet of commercial medical office space. The resulting 8 residential condominium units on the 21,258 square foot lot would have a residential density of 16.3 dwelling units per acre. The project proposes 47 parking spaces between a reconfigured surface parking lot and new parking garage with parking lifts. And the applications that have been approved for the project, or the applications approved for this project under the jurisdiction of the Staff Hearing Officer, a front setback modification on North South Cipuetas Street, an interior setback modification for the 10-foot interior setback on the 3rd story, and an open yard modification for a reduction in the required open yard area. A tentative subdivision map for a 1-lot subdivision to approve 6 additional residential condo units. Determination that the project was categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15332, which is for infill development. So I will go ahead and pass it off. Again, this project today is for a request for a time extension for that subdivision map, the tentative subdivision map. And I understand the applicant is requesting an extension until 2032. And so I will now pass it over to staff if you have any presentation or would like to add anything.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Harris. Kelly Broadison with Community Development. Yes, the applicant requested an extension until 2032, and state law does allow them to request that. However, in speaking with the city attorney and the community development director, it was determined that a 3-year extension could be more appropriate with the condition that the applicants can come back and request more time, and that they have shown a little bit of progress to date with working with an architect, working on working drawings, and construction lenders to evaluate financing scenarios. And if they do come back within 3 years, we would like them to continue to show progress in moving forward with pulling a building permit and moving project forward. And we have Jane Gray here with DUDAC to provide comments.
Thank you, Ms. Broadison. Yes, Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Ms. Broadison, and thank you, Ms. Harris, and appreciate the thorough summary. And Ms. Broadison has really worked with alacrity to move this forward, so we greatly appreciate it. So we support the recommendation for the 3-year extension and continue to make progress on the project.
Great, thank you very much. Quick question on just the time extension in general. So, Ms. Broadison, you mentioned some of the work that's been done so far, and I recognize that the 3 years is different from what the initial application stated. Are there items that you are currently working on that require, like, what is the sort of desire to have a longer time than 3 years? Are there certain things that can't be accomplished within that 3-year time frame?
We don't think that there's certain things. We just would like a little bit more time. Obviously, there's been supply chain issues. We've had some contracting issues. But we're confident we can work through those issues in the next 3 years. And if not, then we'll certainly approach the city at the appropriate time.
Okay, great. I'll now open it up to members of the public. If you're a member of the public and would like to speak on this item, you can make your way to the podium. Not seeing any movement. Ms. Gu, do we have anybody online?
Upon checking Zoom, I do not see any raised hands for this item either. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now I will take it back for comment. I appreciate the comments, Ms. Gray and Ms. Broadison, on the project. Since this is really just a time extension, I don't feel comfortable with the longer time extension that was initially proposed, similar to, it sounds like what the community development director and staff has discussed. So I would not like to move forward with the extension until 2032. However, I am comfortable with moving it for 3 years with the expectation that the applicant at the 3-year time frame, if they have not been able, if they need an additional time extension, that they come in and show progress beyond what's occurred today, and show that there's been work between December 2025 and December 2028. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and approve the time extension. My decision is subject to a 10-day appeal period, and any member of the public can file an appeal, and then any member of the Planning Commission may suspend my decision within 10 calendar days. So thank you very much, Ms. Gray.
Thank you very much for your time.
And with that, that concludes the Staff Hearing Officer meeting for December 10th. And we will see you, I believe the next one is in January. Thank you very much.